The Fruit of the Loom Halftime Report is brought to you by Fruit of the Loom. Clothes that make you feel good.
Halfway home at Riverfront, where Daddy Don's Dolphins lead son Dave's Bengals 10-7. Ernie Johnson in Atlanta with the Fruit of the Loom Halftime Report. Today's Eagles-Niners outcome had folks thumbing through the record books to find the last time San Francisco had taken a regular season beating at home like this one. Eagles 40, Niners 8. Well, it was the worst loss for San Francisco at home since 1967 when the Lions thumped them 45-3. The Eagles hadn't had a 100-yard rusher all year, but at the stick today, a rookie did the deed.
Garner, the single setback, takes the handoff, off left tackle, across the 25-20, at the 15-10, breaks the tackle, he's at the 5, he's in! Charlie Garner!
The rookie out of Tennessee, 16 carries for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns, 40-8, the Eagles over the Niners. Dallas went to 3-1. As Emmitt Smith scored twice, also pulled a hamstring, doesn't look too bad, 34-7 over Washington. And Arizona got its first win, holding the Vikings to 18 yards rushing. Buddy Ball with win number 1, 17-7 over the Vikes. The last time the New York Giants got out of the gate 4-0, it was 1990, and they won the Super Bowl in the Scott Norwood game. Today, Dan Reeves' troops had a 4-0 getaway in their sights, but the New Orleans Saints in their way. They played this one at the Superdome, and Dave Brown had the guys up 13-10 late in the first. And he'd like to have this one back, as they say. A little pass into the flat, right into the midst of linebacker James Williams, and he's going to go untouched, giving the Saints the lead for keeps. New Orleans goes to 2-3 on the year. The Giants lose for the first time, 27-22. The Saints had 7 sacks. Buffalo and Chicago at Soldier Field goes to the Bears, 20-13. Thurman Thomas didn't play with a knee injury, and Jim Kelly an off day, 19 out of 33 for just 116 yards for Buffalo. Tampa Bay beat Detroit 24-14 despite 166 yards on the ground from Barry Sanders. Vernon Turner went 80 yards with a punt return for one of those Tampa Bay scores. For the New York Jets, the promise of a 2-0 start has been all but erased in the last 3 weeks. They went quietly in Cleveland today as the Browns breezed 27-7. Boomer Esiason couldn't play with an ankle injury, and the Jets fell behind 24-0.
Kinchin goes in motion right. Testaverde, a delay to Metcalf. He's got it. Turns the corner. 30, 20, 10, 5, into the end zone. Touchdown, Browns. And Eric goes up to the dog pound, and he is by.
The Cleveland Browns out of the chute, 4-1, 27-7 winners over the New York Jets. New England beat Green Bay on a late Matt Barr field goal, 4 seconds to play. Drew Bledsoe goes over 300 yards passing for the 4th time this season. Indianapolis, a 17-15 win over Seattle as Marshall Faulk had 90 yards on 26 carries and a couple of touchdowns. And the Atlanta Falcons, 8-5 winners over the Rams. Only 1 touchdown in this game. Bobby Hebert to Ricky Sanders. Atlanta over L.A. Fred McGriff, by the way, also a 3-run homer as the Falcons beat the Rams. Here on TNT tonight, you're watching the Shula Bowl, and you're watching Don Shula's Dolphins leading Cincinnati 10-7. We'll take it back to Riverfront to Bob and K-Squared and LT and the gang next.
Downtown Cincinnati in Riverfront Stadium, a sellout crowd tonight for Don Shula's Dolphins and Dave Shula's Bengals. And the cheer of the decade of the 90s went up here in this stadium tonight, a minute 23 seconds into the game, when David Klingler threw a 50-yard touchdown pass to Darnay Scott, and the Bengals 0-4 took a lead over Don Shula. But however, Klingler went 8 for 10 in the first part of the ball game, 1 for 9 in the last. And LG, I want to go to you to this. They seem to be into a ball control, moving the ball, offensive mindset, Cincinnati. Then they got away from it. Couldn't score again.
Well, I talked to Kenny Anderson and said the way they had to pick up on the third down conversion is get some yards on the first down. They said we're going to go to Bill Walsh's playbook, hit the quick receiver in the flat, pick up 4 or 5 yards. It's like a run. Well, all of a sudden they got away from that. I don't understand why they would try to fix something that's not broken.
Well, you know, you have Klingler quarterbacking, and of course Dave Shula, the head coach, but Bruce Coslett, the offensive coordinator. Who would be responsible for making that change of calls?
Well, I have to believe it had to be Coslett, because it's the same type of thing he did when he was at the Jets. Always get themselves in a long yardage situation, and you can't win the games like that.
Well, they can't win the game. They couldn't hold the lead. Dolphins come back and get a lead, but the defense for the Bengals played quite well, with the exception of that 180-yard drive.
Well, all in all, you have to understand that this is the #1 offense in the league, the Miami Dolphins, and the Bengals are short personnel. David Shula asked his team not to embarrass him in this game. So far in the first half, they haven't. I talked about Larry Pecocello and the cut-in during the game. Used to be at Washington, helped Richie Pettibone with a lot of his game plans. Well, Larry Pecocello told me before the game, he's the defensive coordinator here, he told me that you can't fool Dan Marino. You can't use one philosophy against him. Either you have to change up your coverages. They've done that here in Cincinnati. The secondary has bumped the receivers early. They've played zone. They've done a good job of keeping people in front of them. Now, Marino's thrown for 131 yards in the first half, but 54 of those yards came late in the first half. So the Cincinnati defense, maybe minus the great linebackers, have an undersized defensive end. They don't have the personnel, but they've done a good job. Now they have to do a better job in the second half.
Well, David Klingler went 8 of 10 and then 1 of 9. The only good news that comes out of that is Miami must be covering because there have been no sacks on Klingler tonight. He had been sacked a league-leading 18 times coming into this ball game. And now we'll get ready for the second half of this ball game from Riverfront with Pat Hayden and Gary Bender.
Halfway point, Miami leading 10-7 after Cincinnati had taken an early lead in this ball game. And I'm Gary Bender along with Pat Hayden. And you would think that maybe a very critical time of this game is how Cincinnati defends the first series with Miami starting the second half.
You're right. You know, Miami will get the opening half kickoff. That's going to be very important to set the tone for the whole second half.
Well, as we look now at our Riders game summary, you can see that Cincinnati started very well, but since then they've had a tough time getting anything going offensively.
Well, you see what David Klingler did in that first drive, 3 of 3. Since then, 5 of 16, including 1 of his last 8. But the big problem, I think, has been on third down. They haven't been very good all year, but tonight, 1 of 6 on third downs where the Dolphins have hit 50%.
And they're 1 of 19 in the last 2 ball games. Let's go back to the 2 touchdowns. The first, a 51-yard strike from Klingler to Darnay Scott.
Yeah, I like this call. They came out and they were aggressive right in that first drive, and they got in that area where most teams run little square in, square outs. They got Vincent to bite on it. They went up top on Scott. He gets in the end zone.
7-0 after 1 quarter of play, and then after Stoyanovich, it made it 7-3. Marino hit Keith Byers from 11 yards out.
Yeah, and the block by Ingram, number 82, really set it up for the easy touchdown there.
And so that's where we stand right now. Miami with a record of 3-1 with a 10-7 lead